Hey, this is Brian, and I'm here to open up a discussion on Bloom and Gloom, the 4th episode of MLP's 5th season. So what we got here that I really hoped we would get is the spiritual successor to the previous Luna Nightmare episodes to close out the Luna helping the Cutie Mark Crusaders through their Nightmare Trilogy. I'm surprised most people haven't seemed to really talk about it in this light. Maybe they have, I just haven't really seen it, but this has spanned over 3 seasons, which is actually pretty amazing. It's a loosely connected story with chapters that have been revealed over the course of 3 years. Especially for a kid watching, 3 years is the equivalent of forever.
That wasn't flying, that was falling with style.
What's it do?
You know, it's just a house.
Go.
Everything I ever did, I did for her. Now she's gone. But I'm still here.
The past can hurt, but the way I see it, you can either run from it or learn from it. Your future is whatever you make it.
Finally, we have them all.
It is also pretty impressive that they managed to do this story 3 times, basically the same thing about a Crusader getting paranoid and having nightmares, but they did it differently and excellently each and every time. The second time we see a nightmare in this one, you think they're maybe going to go for like a Groundhog Day type approach, but instead we got an exploration of a series of different possible realities, which we never had really seen in the other 2. We always wanted to know what would happen if one of the Crusaders got their Cutie Mark before the others, and we see all of this played out. It's even acknowledged that it may be kinda silly to assume the 3 of them would all receive theirs at the same time. We've all thought about how the Cutie Mark conflict could go, if one or more of the Crusaders got one, and this was a version based on those ideas that was heavily dramatized for comedic effect. Her asking if she can come back later, and that she can't come back then either. And frankly, they're not even supposed to be friends. It's quite over the top, and it's pretty funny. So this is not only the best episode of the season so far, in my opinion, this is also definitely Apple Bloom's best and most unique episode. What makes her limited in comparison to the other 2 Crusaders is that her solo stories always seem to revolve around the same thing, her attempting to obtain her Cutie Mark. I want it now! It seemed like they were running out of new spins to put on this idea. When was the last time we had a real starring role for Apple Bloom? I guess that would be back in Season 4, actually, with Some Pony to Watch Over Me, which focused on her relationship with Applejack and how she sought independence, not really about her mark. But that's basically painting the old story of seeking maturity and finally receiving that Cutie Mark, just with a new brush. Here, however, they really hit on something great. Apple Bloom, though always obsessed with obtaining her Cutie Mark, has never really considered the possibility that she may get one that she isn't satisfied with. Can you imagine being trapped in a destiny that you detested? What kind of life would you live? This is getting into some of the darker implications of one of the most fundamental aspects of the show, and I just love it. Oh, and so Luna officially appeared before Celestia this season. Now, isn't that quite the turnaround? I hope they continue to find new ways to incorporate her into the show, as this saga was an excellent way to utilize her character, focusing on how she handles the nightmares of her subjects via other characters we've grown familiar of. Funnily enough, when they did the roll call at the beginning and they said, "I think we're all here," I was thinking, oh, but where's Bab's seat at the meeting? And what do you know, after being completely absent all 4th season, the character has been acknowledged again. It's actually pretty cool that they gave her a Cutie Mark. Not often does a character who isn't Twilight on this show go through a major change. Who else has? Discord, Luna in the very beginning of the show, I guess Sunset Simmer if you count her. I guess also it would seem that Applejack has leftover pancakes from last week's episode, Castle Sweet Castle. No matter what timeline she's in either, she still has those pancakes, I guess. So the whole idea of the character who wanted to ditch his job that his Cutie Mark made him get stuck with so desperately was really great and illustrated a dark concept without being too scary. I never would have thought the show would depict outgrowing a talent and leaving to a retirement home, but hey, as the episode continues, it becomes apparent that this mythology may or may not be accurate, as it is within a nightmare. I love how he said that any pony with a trombone can get rid of parasprites. The fact that this show has established this logic, and I recognize it as being established, is quite something, since it's rather bizarre. There's also a nice reference to Twilight's potion-making lessons from Season 4. So maybe Apple Bloom's Cutie Mark will have nothing to do with apples after all. I guess we'll have to see. Oh, and then how he called out Apple Bloom, telling her to stop repeating everything he says. That was a really funny way to make fun of how many scenes progress with character A saying, "Exposition, blah blah blah, foot." Character B says, "Foot." Character A says, "Why yes, exposition, blah blah blah, your destiny." Character B says, "My destiny." Character A says, "Oh, didn't you know, blah blah blah." And the first opportunity he gets, he also just vanishes. I don't know if he really exists, or if he was just maybe one of Apple Bloom's projections, but either way, he was very funny. Interesting how with those Twitter mites, the further apart they spread, the more powerful Jolts will get. Because philosophy-wise, this is totally against togetherness, which is a main theme of the show. It's as if to state, and yes, I may very well be reading way too much into it, that without their fellow Crusaders to love and support them like they do throughout the day, once they go home and fall asleep, their thoughts grow more and more fearful and chaotic. That certainly would be in line with the two similarly themed episodes that preceded it. It would have been really funny also if, when Silver Spoon was mocking Applebloom by talking to the ladybug, asking it to be her friend since no one else will, she just whispered to it, "No, but seriously, I feel very alone." Anyway, continuing on the concept from the season premiere that talent is tied into confirmation of talent via the cutie mark, we have this episode. So is the commentary behind this that one only feels capable of carrying out their talent if they receive recognition and validation? That'd be an interesting way to go, as it would help settle the controversy among the fandom about cutie marks and destiny defying a conscious choice. They even have the phrase, "a cutie mark won't change you no matter what you get." It comes up here. The cutie mark not being an apple scene also, that's absolutely hysterical. It's just how silly the concept is of living up to your family's apples, and then all the family's voices mixing around. That's just icing on the cake. It reflects true fears too. Some feel pressure to follow in the footsteps of family, genuinely. All comedy is derived from pain, and you could see that here. Not only this scene, but all of the disturbing realities Applebloom found herself in. In that scene, I think they used that weird blue background from Pinky's Nervous Breakdown episode, Party of One. Also, what would that dolphin talent even be? Would he work at SeaWorld or something? I have no idea. Plus, I must mention the fact that Scootaloo can fly in her dreams, which is so bittersweet and touching, and just wow, I don't even know how that makes me feel. It really makes you think. Such a nice detail to put in there. So I do have something really important that I need to address. This is an awesome episode. I want to make that clear. It's great. Best episode of the season. Really, really good. But I do want to talk about this. Now, so I was thinking about what the source was of the boys communicating to Applebloom while I was watching the episode. My first thought, of course, was Luna, so it would tie in with Sleepless in Ponyville and For Whom the Sweetie Belle Toils, the earlier two installments in the Nightmare Trilogy I've been talking about. But then the sentence comes up, "Cutie marks and trouble are two peas in the same pod." And I just gasped. I'm like, oh man, it's Starlight! It's Starlight Glimmer! Oh my gosh! Oh, and the conclusion being reached was that a cutie mark was a terrible thing and life would be easier without it. Wow, I mean, this shows how Starlight's so persuasive as to round up a horde of followers. She didn't need to cast some spell on Applebloom that just brainwashed her or anyone else. Like, she only did what she wanted. It proves that everyone who began to support equality wasn't just utterly brainwashed. They were convinced through legitimate means and being sown what could happen. But wait, it's Applebloom's shadow. Her antagonist was her own projection. Which, I mean, that'd be really cool. Like, in any other episode, any other time, that our greatest enemies are within ourselves, all of that. Yes, sir, that's very interesting, cool message. They could have done all that even, and then at the end did something spooky that implied that there was another force working behind the scenes that was Starlight herself. Maybe that even is the case. I can't fathom how this episode would manage to match up so perfectly with the season premiere from just 2 weeks before, and then cut the connection at the very last minute. If it was Starlight, wow, I would love her as an antagonist. She'd be one of the best we've ever seen on this show, and a valid contender for the very best. It would have made her truly threatening, and like maybe even at the end she would have taken Applebloom. It could have been crazy, I mean, but hey. We still got a great and creative character study out of this episode, and I'm grateful for it. So what do you all think? Do you like the CMC episodes, or do you prefer to stay with the main 6? Would you want those characters to be integrated more frequently with the main characters? We don't really see episodes where all of them are in the spotlight together, now do we? That'd be interesting. How would you rank the CMC? Which one's your favorite? Which one's your least favorite? Did you think this was the best episode of Season 5 yet, like I did? And do you also, like me, wish that we got an appearance from the apparent season-wide antagonist that would have been perfect? And wow, before I get started again, thanks for watching.